Hello, Yakri here with another Dominions 5 video. This time we're going to be looking at early age Katis and talking about their design and expansion. There are a few ways I think you can build this nation, probably either a heavy scales setup or a expansion pretender setup or a bless setup. So, you know, like every way you can build a nation, right? Most likely the bless, any sort of bless setup is pretty weak because serpent dancers aren't that good and your other options, for a bless are kind of hard to access, right? You can pseudo free spawn your sacred serpents, but because it requires a temple and a priest, and I think they still have upkeep, it's not a super effective strategy, and the other units you have available have to be summoned, so you have to spend gems on them, and the best one of those is probably the monster toad, which actually isn't that good, despite it being your best option. So, not a huge fan of just summoning stuff, right? And not a huge fan of the sacred route. Early expansion with an expansion pretender is quite good. There's not really anything wrong with it, except that you don't have access to a lot of great expansion pretenders. Earth Serpent is a lot weaker than it used to be, and most of your other options fall off, right? Like Earth Serpent didn't in the past, or still doesn't. It just your scales are too bad. Because now you can take, I forget what it's called, but this dog guy, the soul-eating dog, or you can take a couple other options, but they're all either cost ineffective, or you have to mix a bless onto it to make it expand effectively, in which case it again costs too many points because of that, or it's going to, the soul-eating dog is probably viable, but it's going to rack up afflictions and die by about the end of expansion, so it's not going to be useful in the long term, really. But if you want to go on Expansion Pretender, it's probably still okay. And Expansion Pretenders are, of course, good because it helps you secure your cap circle faster, which can offset the fact that Statis, even on a high scales build, has a hard time taking their cap circle, although it gets very easy for them after that. So I'm going to go with a heavy scales build. I think it's my preferred route because basically because of the reborn mages, right? You have these Death 2 mages, and Death 2 mages are really good, and you get very minimalistic Death 2 mages. They're just really no nonsense. They're going to be sad in cold climates, but at least when you're fighting defensively, you get these Death 2 mages that pretty much can just spam out Horde of Skeletons over and over again. And they're just really efficient. And you can recruit them off cap. They're fast recruit. Everything's great about them, right? Okay, so that's why we do that. But we also have, this nation in general has some other things that you can combo well with that. Like you can get a nature 2. You can get a nature 2 mage basically, right? And use your nature 2 mage to craft nature boosters. Then you get a nature astral mage, and I think that gets you enough to craft, I wonder if you don't have enough astral. It might get you enough to craft moonvine bracelets. I don't know. I'll check in the Dom Inspector really quick here, because I probably should have looked this up before, but I totally forgot. Moonvine bracelet. So it takes 3 nature, 1 astral. So yeah, absolutely you can do that because you might need to empower in nature to do that, huh? Or get very lucky. If you get a mage with Nature Astral, nat 10%, 1 in 4 chance, or Nature Astral that way, right? Either way, if you get Nature with Astral, you're going to have a mage that can easily do it. Otherwise, you're going to have a little bit of a trickier time boosting your way up there. Since, unfortunately, these guys are both Nature 1, Astral 1. You need Nature 3, Astral 1 to craft Moonvine Bracelets at crafting 6. It's also a little later than you'd like to do it to cast that spell. I think you can just empower your way to it with the gems though, and you just can make a thistle mace and oh, I should probably say what I'm talking about. But when you get water pathing, right, you can cast Foul Vapors, which is a battlefield-wide enchantment that poisons everyone on the battlefield. Now, your national units are resistant to poison, so that's fine for you. You don't care. And then your national units have Swamp Survival. There's another spell. I forget what the pathing is for it. I don't know if it's a tricky one as well. But there's another spell that makes the whole battlefield a swamp. And it doesn't affect you because you have Swamp Survival, but it makes other people fatigue out. And so if you cast both of those spells, they're these sort of grinding down effects that slowly give you a massive advantage over the battlefield if your opponent doesn't do something to counter them. And they might not always be able to, especially if you rush the research for these spells. Which brings us to why I like heavy scales builds. So I was mucking about here, just ignore that. So this is one of the heavy scales builds you can do, right? You do light dominion strength. This is kind of irritating, but you get strength 4 priests that you can recruit. So you recruit a couple of them, and that'll pretty much handle that if you go and have them preach at annoying areas, and eventually you'll build 5 temples as you get more forts, and that'll bump it up to 5, and you won't really have any problems after that. Since you're a Heat 2 nation as well, and you're going up to Heat 3, your income is going to be fantastic, just naturally, since you won't have a large temperature scale penalty pretty much any of the time. And since you go order, productivity, growth, and luck, you're going to have a ton of money. Keep in mind that although you get less random events with order scales around, right, you still get random events, and random events that pay out gold, how much gold they pay out is determined by your positive income scales. Since you have maximum positive income scales, you will occasionally get enormous payouts of gold from random events, which can be very helpful. 3 magic this is not a perfect nation for 3 magic. You're not playing Saramatia in the early age, but it's actually pretty solid with your Reborn. Since you're going to spam Reborn, and you can actually start recruiting them very early in your expansion phase, because you're going to actually recruit fairly high resource cost units a lot of the time with this setup. You can get a lot of Reborn on your capital and get very quick research going, at least compared to a lot of other nations. Some people will be faster than you, but you're going to hit your research goals very quickly, especially because your nation only really needs one thing, and that's Enchantment 5. And then you're combat ready. And Enchantment 5 gets you multiple spells you'd like to have, and after that you can go Construction, and then you can branch out. So, in this Pretender, I've gotten Reinvigoration and Arcane Finesse, and that's because your Sacred Mages are just your little communion guys, the Lizard Tribe Shamans. And let's go back to our troop line, because I didn't fully go out through the entire troop line. I'm just trying to go over the overarching strategy. So these guys, right? They're sacred. These guys are also really cheap. These actually are, right, I forgot about how good those are. So the Reborn have 9, and these guys have 9, but research, right? Notice, though, that they're 90 gold, and they're sacred, which means that they are going to cost you very little money. So these are actually your, like, primary research slaves. However, you're going to mix and match with the Reborn quite a bit, because the Reborn are extremely good battle mages, and you want a fuckload of them. And we're gonna spam the hell out of the Reborn. But these guys are very good too, and I think they are foreign recruit. You know, I'm hesitant to look it up in Dom Inspector because the Dominions 5 Inspector has a few bugs. It's been lying to me, and I don't want to make any mistakes because I used information from it that's wrong. However, no, I don't see any off-cap mention of them. So perhaps not. Still, they're pretty good to recruit. The Shamans. They're not actually called Lizard Tribe. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Okay. Well, I just found out something neat from Dom Inspector that I will show in the game. We'll talk about it later. It's going to be a secret. It's going to be a secret. We're keeping some excitement for a bit after this. All right. So let's talk about their actual troop line now. I think we covered... Oh, I should cover a little bit more about your recruitables. So you've got Lizard Kings. These guys are great troop leaders. They're also priest 3s. So this means that you're quite comfortable taking a immobile pretender because these guys can capture thrones for you. They're also very useful for battlefield blessing, which you don't need to do that much, but it could be nice to get all your lizard shamans blessed because, you know, you might have reinvigoration blessing on them. And they're going to form communions occasionally and cast big nature and astral spells in battle, right? So that can be handy. You can also do things like have a small communion of these guys and then a bunch of them in like out of a communion, right? And then you can cast Light of the Northern Star and then cast Mind Burn if you have Thaumaturgy 2 and Conjuration 4, which is a really good single target counter if you need to kill like elite units, right? Like if you're fighting... I mean, this is the early age, so you can't fight Middle Marignan and their super heavy cavalry. But if you were, you know, that would be a good option. Then we've got Lizard Lords. Whoops, I misclicked. Lizard Lords, which are your nice troop leaders, right? And there's not really much else to them, right? There's 70 gold, good leadership dudes that you probably want to use because good leadership is better than ever. You've got these slave leader guys. I'm kind of disappointed in them. They've got Taskmaster 2, so they get, give a morale bonus to slaves, but they only have 40 leadership. I'd really like to see these guys be more expensive and have 80 leadership because I don't feel like there's a good reason to recruit your slave leader dudes because, you could just recruit a Lizard Lord and use him for slaves or anyone else. I mean, he gives a morale bonus as well for having 80 leadership, and he can actually make troops go in a line. So, and those were already bad in the minions for it. I think they just got useless. So our troop line. Okay, these guys, militia, they're garbage, but they're garbage that you can recruit really cheaply. They're 7 gold, 2 resources, very cheap units. Something to note here is that they have 5 protection. This actually makes them weirdly good for garbage militia that are 2 resources, because a lot of 2 resource units are going to be naked. These guys are naked, but they're lizards, so they have 5 protection. It's quite nice. They have 7 morale, though, so they'll break pretty much immediately. However, they're good to use as they're particularly good bait troops. Like, they're better than the average bait troops that you might get as some other nation that you just put up front and let die, right? Now you've got the heavy infantry. Yeah, these are the next ones up. And something to note about the infantry for this nation is that they're pretty good. They're a little deceptively good because it says 16 protection, right? Well, that's your head armor, right? Oh, no, it is that good. That's right. No, it is that good. Fuck. No, I'm fooling myself. These guys are great because your units have high base protection, right, of 5, because they're lizards, and they wear relatively heavy armor for the early age, and they wear shields. So these guys are really resistant to archer fire. I think even longbows won't be very good versus them, actually. And that's fortunate because you may notice something about your troop lineup, which is that you have no archers, which is actually a big problem for the nation. But fortunately, at least you have these really tough troops of various types that are going to help you deal with that. These light infantry are some of the best value troops you have because they have javelins, they've got spears, they've got shields, but they don't cost a lot of resources because they're naked, but they still have 5 protection, so they die easily, but, it takes enough effort to kill them that they're kind of handy. Slave warriors are also really good. These are kind of like the elite version of your militia. These are like the elite militia, and they're actually quite good for the same reason that lizard indie provinces are hard to fight, right? Because they have the 20 damage tridents, and 20 damage is pretty good for a piercing weapon, right? It's actually very good. And they've got the bite, which is 13 slashing damage, and that's actually very nice, right? Let's look at the damage on these militia spears, right? 13 damage. These guys have a secondary attack that's 13 damage. And then they've also got their primary attack, which is very good damage, and it's 3, so that's pretty nice for you. They have terrible morale, of course, and they have even they actually have lower protection than the other lizards. But their combat stats overall are actually quite good. 13 hit points, 11 attack, right? 11 combat speeds, so a little bit faster than normal. These are pretty solid units. And then you've got your elite warriors. Now, despite the fact that they have terrible morale, so that's a pretty big downside, but these are kind of my favorite troop to just spam out. They're 15 gold, which is a little pricey, but their combat stat line is quite good. They have surprisingly good protection as long as they're not getting hit in the head. And they have a decent amount of hit points, and they do good damage, right? And the multiple attacks thing is really hard to overstate how good that is, because multiple attacks, of course, decreases the defense of high defense units faster, making them better at fighting elite units. And of course, if versus weak units, like say barbarians, units that have very low protection or are actually naked, like some monkeys that you'll fight, and have 5 to 10 hit points, there's a good chance that versus an unarmored troop with a slashing attack like that, you'll just kill them. And so they can quite easily kill 2 units per turn, which means that even though they aren't quite as durable as, say, your heavy infantry over here with their very good armor, they will kill stuff quite quickly. And killing stuff, has a, I think I've mentioned this a lot of times in a lot of videos, but killing things has a defensive quality all its own, because things can't attack you back, right, if they're dead. And you've got one really elite melee troop, which is the Falchineer. These guys are fantastic. 18 slashing damage, dual-wielding troops with ambidextrous, so they dual-wield at good at their full attack bonus. They wear hats. They have good or okay chest armor, and with their natural protection and okay stat line, these are very durable troops. Not as durable, of course, as your dudes with shields, because shields are very good. Even with their ability to break in Dominions 5. But these guys will kill stuff very quickly. It's kind of the same deal as the Lizard guys, but they're more heavily armored and they deal more damage, or have the better chance of like killing 2 troops in a turn than the Lizards do, because they're 2 18 damage slashing attacks, especially in the early age. That's quite good. This is also going to make them very good versus troops like Giants, because they might actually be able to kill a Giant in a turn if they get good attack rolls, right? Especially since these are size 2, so a Giant there might only be 1 or 2 Giants in a square, because they'll be size 3 or 4, and these guys, there will be 3 of them in a square. So 3 of these guys in a square versus a square of Giants, these guys are going to win. This is why early age Ulm is like an anti-Giant nation, because they have axe-wielding guys that are kind of like a better version of the Falconeers, I think. Maybe I'm remembering their stats wrong. I think they're actually better than the Falconeers. All right. There's 2 other interesting units to talk about. That's your Sacreds and your Charioteers. They actually called Charioteers chariots? Lizard chariots. Okay, Charioteers. So the Serpent Dancers are kind of bad. They're naked troops with protection 5, which puts them in a really awkward position in Dominions 5. Sacreds that were previously had low protection, really absurdly low protection, but had other things to make up for their absurdly low protection, got better in Dominions 5, right? Because there are good ways to make up for units having absurdly low protection, like 2. However, with Natural Protection 5, there are fewer good ways to improve your protection. Actually, you pretty much want to use Hard Skin with these guys, especially considering the other Sacred troops you have available to you. And that's not a very efficient bless. You'd really like to use Stygian Skin, but they don't get much benefit from it, because they have okay natural protection, actually, and they just don't wear armor. And if they had even 5-prot armor, or something, or even good armor, if they had leather armor and lower natural protection, they would be in a much better position to be buffed. And they're also cap only, so it puts you in a really awkward position where it's hard to get a good bless on these guys. And they're not that great to begin with. They only get 1 attack, it only does 15 damage, it poisons people, which is the least favorable way to deal damage in Dominions, and poison was nerfed between Dominions 4 and 5, or at least poison breath weapons were. I don't know if it was all poisons. That's a good question. But in any case, even if it wasn't, it's not particularly strong. You can do stuff with poison, but it's mostly with other types of poison, like large area of effect attacks, or anything where you don't need to worry about killing the unit soon. The thing is, when you're in melee combat with an opponent, you need to kill them right now. You don't need to kill them later. If early age Katis had the ranged poison flingers like middle Katis does, maybe those guys were sacreds, I would actually be pretty excited. But these guys, not great. Their main claim to fame is that they have an okay defense skill, but they're not even mounted. So even with the buffs to defense in Dominions 5, defense is almost twice as good in Dominions 5 as it was in Dominions 4, because harassment penalties are lower. Even with those changes, I don't know if these guys can really be any good. But you can certainly try. I think there's definitely some room for someone to prove me wrong, especially when combined with your little free-spawning, banner-bearing sacred snakes and some of the sacred summons you've got access to. But I doubt you can make it all that good. So that covers them. Oh, and finally, the Lizard Chariots. Now, I'm actually the most excited about the Lizard Chariots, because there's been a couple changes to these guys. Now, I think, let me double check in the Dom Inspector, but I believe these have been discounted from Dominions 4 to Dominions 5. Oh, there I have the Dom Inspector up. Let's check this out. National only, early age status, and the Charioteers, whatever they are. Or chariots, not charioteers. Yeah, they've dropped in price by 5 gold. Now, something else to note about these guys is that they have Unsurroundable 1, right? This is an ability that didn't exist in Dominions 1, or 4. 1, yeah. Dominions 4, and it means that they can ignore an attack in terms of defense penalty, right? You get a defense penalty every time you're attacked, and this negates one of those penalties, right? The first penalty you would have gotten just doesn't happen. So they have to be attacked twice before they get any penalty. Now, also, defense penalties from harassment were nerfed coming to Dominions 5. They used to be 2 for unmounted units and 1 for mounted units. Now, I believe chariots count as being mounted, which means that it's gone down to 0.5 of a defense point per attack. So before they lose a defense point, they have to be attacked 3 times. Yes, 3 times. And they will lose 1 point of defense skill. Well, they've actually got 14 defense skill, which is quite good. And it says there's a shield modifier, but there's no shield listed, so I wonder... Oh, it's just armor plus shield defense modifier. This is a penalty for their armor. So 14, right? 14 defense is actually pretty good. Remember, 10 is the average. So with a lot of units having 10 to 11 attack skill, they're going to be missed quite often in melee combat. And when they are hit, they actually have 17 protection, which is a buff from Dominions 4, I believe. I think it was 16 in Dominions 4. So they've gone down a little bit in cost. They've improved in defense terms from this special ability and from the changes to defense, and they've also improved in another way that's very not obvious, which is that cavalry units can be set to attack rear, and attacking rear in Dominions 4 required a morale check for every line or every squad of enemy troops on the battlefield, right? So you could abuse this, of course. Lots of people would threaten to defeat me by attacking rear with their flying units or whatever, because it worked on them too. And so I won a lot of fights from people who thought they'd be able to do that in Dominions 4, but as long as you're playing versus a competent opponent, that's never going to work in Dominions 4. However, in Dominions 5, it'll work every single time. How is that? Well, in Dominions 4, you would make a bunch of squads, right? You just split your army up into a buttload of squads, way more than you needed to. Now, this is kind of a bad idea from a morale standpoint, but if you know that someone's going to try and flank you with flying units, then you can make the odds extremely good that they will fail and their units will attack somewhere in the middle of your army and get butchered. In Dominions 5, you can't do that anymore. The flying troops will go straight to the back. So flying troops and cavalry have been buffed a pretty significant amount because of that. In fact, any fast troops are much better, which comes to this really weird troop, and I'm not sure you can actually make use of this, but there are these crappy little lizards that they're naked, they cost too many hit points, or too much gold for their stats, and they have a spear and a bite. And the thing is, these are the same speed as your chariots, which are quite fast. Combat speed 16, whereas just ground troops, like regular light infantry, are like combat speed 10. So they're bizarre. I don't know if you can really make a lot of use of that, but you can try and flank people with them. Good luck. It might work, maybe. So I think that covers the troop line pretty heavily. The strategy is pretty much going to be to, at first, recruit some chaff units like militia or the naked slave warriors and some lizard chariots. And we're going to try and choose indie provinces that you can successfully snipe the commanders out of by attacking rear. And so we'll expand like that, right? And then as we get more of our cap circle captured, we will start recruiting elite warriors. Now these guys will just absolutely shred indies. And then we'll recruit cavalry along the chariots along with them, and pretty much anything that the chariots aren't good against, the elite warriors are good against. That's mainly like if you run into giants, which I actually did expand on my first turn when I was testing this, into a province that like secretly had some Jotuns in it that weren't on the scouting information, and it was pretty sad because my chariots just tried to attack them and got killed. They still did okay, actually. I won the fight, but the more expectation I would have normally is that 6 of these guys can kill like 40 barbarians, right? Like that'll happen pretty easily. And they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Cavalry's been buffed a good bit. I'm still not sure that all of them are worth their gold value because, of course, although they seem totally amazing, once you have to fight mages, it's a little bit more problematic for you. Okay, so we're gonna load up this Pretender God. I need to cover a couple other things. So this is the Devourer of Souls doggy. He's very cute, and he will eat people's souls. This actually soul slays people when it hits them. So he's gonna kill stuff pretty easily. He's got okay protection as long as you take Earth 4, and you have to be kind of careful with him expanding. Mostly he's gonna just kind of stand around and get beaten up until people get scared of him from his fear aura and run away. And that's the strategy with him. He'll accrue afflictions and eventually die. But hopefully you can take your cap circle and then just like retreat him to your capital and use him to craft Earth stuff and do Earth rituals later on, right? Yeah, that's pretty much the strat with the early expansion with this guy. The other option would be to take the Earth Snake, and the Earth Snake won't get beat up, it won't die, it'll just be a badass forever. But you need to tank your scales harder than this. Like, you're going to get like 2 drain or something from the if you pick the Earth Serpent. Yeah, pretty much. I also looked at some other bless options. There are definitely some other options you can have here, depending on what you want to do. This was something I think I looked at as like a mini bless, right? Precision, reinvigoration, undying, blood surge. It's kind of handy. You could probably expand with your sacreds a little bit just on the back of undying and blood surge, which are you know, both not incarnate, so could be handy. And this gives you neat magic pathing. Oh, this was a funny thing I looked at, right? So this is probably one way you could make your sacreds like survive a bit, which is the undying luck combo with Stygian flesh, so that they're a little bit durable. But I'm not a fan of it. Their scales are terrible, and this is a nation that actually benefits pretty well from their scales. Okay, let's get into the expansion. Alrighty. So, we are actually not going to make this guy our prophet, which could hurt our odds of survival. Combining units like this is kind of bad because it... but they actually have the same morale. Never mind. You shouldn't combine troops of different amounts of morale because the whole squad will get morale checks at the lowest morale value of any of the troops, which, for obvious reasons, is pretty bad. It can make your units rout like super easily. So don't do that, probably, unless you really can't avoid it. So for that reason, what do I want to recruit? Militia have terrible morale. See, I'm going to run into some problems. Oh no, how many squads can this guy handle? Army setup. He can only handle 2. This is awkward. However I do it, I'm trying to think of a way to improve my expansion from what it was last time I tried this. Maybe in fact just recruiting 2 of these guys would be the best route to go. Yeah, seems pretty legit. Potentially I could recruit my sacreds and just mix them in with my other dudes. On account of them having high defense skill, they might actually live a little bit longer. And I can recruit. I run out of recruitment points? Holy points. All right, I only have 4. I actually recruit a decent number of them, and I can recruit like 1 city guard. Ah, that's actually pretty good. That's pretty good. There's a use for your sacreds. All right, we found one. We found one, guys. And we can recruit a reborn as well, so we'll do that. That's good. Our research is, like I think I mentioned already, we're just going to go to 5 enchantment. That's it. Boom. I've discussed the research options. I don't think there's anything else I would consider viable except going 5 enchantment. Like, Horde of Skeletons is just that good, and you're really, really, really good at spamming it. So do what you're good at and capitalize on that. Lion Tribe. These are going to be great to expand into for us. Excellent. Our other units are going to get kind of beat up a bit because Lion Tribe have a lot of archers, but our cavalry, or our chariots, can probably kill all of them by themselves. Probably. So we're going to have these guys go attack Lion Tribe, and I actually made a mistake here. I need to recruit a shaman, actually. And we're going to change this recruitment now because, yeah, we're going to just recruit elite warriors, 2 of them. Is that going to be enough? It should be if I'm patient a little bit. Yeah, that's going to suck, but... Alright. Let's see how this goes. This went pretty badly, I would say, actually, because we lost 2 of our chariots. Let's see what actually happened here. I did tell them to attack here, right? I'm sure I did. I assume the Lion Tribe like actually caught them, right? No, just a lot of javelins. Javelins are fairly high damage. They actually took a little bit of damage there. Yep. Oh, they're gonna get killed. They're gonna get killed from the retreating units. Oh no. Wait, I didn't even see any of them die there. What happened? I had 4, right? Like, I feel like these guys should be okay here. This guy took some pretty bad damage, but this guy has like 3 hit points left. What happens? They all lived. And then they're dead. Oh, I misread. I'm an idiot. Wow. Someone's totally gonna watch that and realize my mistake instantly and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Alright, so we're gonna make this guy a prophet, and something kind of neat happens because this guy has a thing called prophet shape. Now, if you haven't encountered it before, prophet shape is this handy dandy feature of some units in Dominion's 4 and 5, where they get different stat lines and abilities when you profitize them, when they become a prophet, right? I really don't want to expand it to barbarians, but I kind of need that province. And so we're going to take advantage of that, and that can let us do some shenanigans that I was thinking might be difficult to do as this nation, but I think my my way of thinking was wrong. Okay, so end turn. All right, how'd this battle go? We conquered it. We didn't even lose any troops. This is okay. So this was a really easy indie province, but I'm going to say this is probably the power of the chariots right here. We'll do it on high speed. What do the chariots do? They engage those guys, and they just kind of fight for a bit, and slaughtered, and they start retreating. Right, because as soon as you kill all the commanders, the enemy troops start retreating, which is like a really easy way to win indie provinces. All right, Dom Inspector lied to me. It lied to me. I'm disgusted. All right, I am disgusted. There's just so many issues here. Prophet shape shaman. So unless that's a bug, it could just be a bug. So these guys have a prophet shape, and the prophet shape has astral 2, nature 3. And I know, and they usually they change model usually as well. So the Dom 5 Inspector lists this dude as having a prophet shape, but he does not. Huh, that's unfortunate. Really big waste of using my prophetization there too. I guess not. I mean, he's always blessed. He can be a communion leader, right? That's cool, huh? But no path boosting, huh? That is very unfortunate. I don't know. I'm disappointed. I hope it's a bug, because what it does, nature 2, astral 2, nature 3 would let you craft moonvine bracelets, right, without doing any sort of shenanigans or empowerment, which would make it really easy to I guess those boost nature, right? Moonvine, yeah, boost nature, right? So that would make it really easy to cast foul vapors later on. You could do some shenanigans and other things. Like, it's not the only thing it lets you cast handily, but because you could put it on your not reborn, what are they called? Your Sauromancers, right? Okay, so we've got like a pretty solid army here. Okay, maybe it's not that solid. I would like them to have more of these guys, but these should be okay-ish. I wonder if we can actually expand versus... barbarians with this army, with a slightly larger army. Like I did a similar expansion with like 8 cavalry or 8 chariots, and I'd be very confident if I had 8. But I think this is a bit uncertain. Maybe I should. I think lizard warriors will be even harder. No, they're still size 2. They'll be less hard because there's just fewer of them. Hopefully, the scouting information could be wrong, of course, as well. But be that as it may. Okay, so yeah. And turn. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so this went quite well. We still haven't lost any of our chariots, which is good because they're going to be accruing XP, which will be boosting their defense. And so on units like those that are of like really good defense in their cavalry, so we still conquered it. That was very rough, but we conquered it. Okay. New famous hero. Cool. So as I was saying, all right, so cavalry, right? Let's look at these guys. When they get experience bonuses, since it gives them a bonus to their defense skill, and I already talked about how good defense skill is on these units, it just makes them like significantly better, even in a +1 bonus. Have they really all gotten afflictions? This guy hasn't. Yay! One guy didn't get an affliction. If only he had gotten the valor. Man, I swear, whenever I'm playing a nation that doesn't have any like powerful commanders to expand with, I never get like the really fun expansion thing, or hero abilities. All right, this guy unfortunately is going to have to go back to the capital, so I'm really sad that I bothered recruiting a commander for that reason. So we're going to recruit some more. We're actually going to recruit some more shamans. Yes, they're much cheaper for the same kind of value. We're going to recruit those, and we should have another expansion force when he gets back. Okay, end turn. I should have recruited a mage instead of the commander I recruited, actually, right there. So this is still going really well. Jesus, 33 kills for our chariots. So this guy that I recruited, that was a mistake. He should have been another lizard, another shaman. So let's see. We've got all of these guys, and we need to. I'm gonna mix and match now. We're gonna cut it down and just recruit this every turn, so I don't have to keep swapping around my stuff, right? I won't have to do that. It's limp. All right, that's not a big deal. Since he's a commander, he doesn't have to do much. So we're gonna have these guys attack closest. These guys are 8 units attacking rear, and he shouldn't have any problem with the barbarians now. And these guys, we're avoiding these barbarians, of course, because we don't have enough infantry front line anymore. 16 units, that's still pretty good, actually. Might be able to do it, but they're not part of our cap circle, so I have another excuse to not attack them. Unfortunately, I added AI nations to this game, and it looks like Therados is going to be a pest right behind me. That's unfortunate. I feel like getting, maybe it's just my imagination, but I feel like high resource troops are better, or you want them more in Dominions 5, and it's harder to get resources in Dominions 5. And so I always am very salty about being near the sea in this game, much more than I ever was in Dominions 4, although it was pretty much a penalty for most nations anyway. That's fine, okay. End turn. Okay, let's see. We lost one chariot, but we still did really well. We killed all the jaguars. There were quite a few of them. All right. Well, 32 is not quite a few, I guess. These should still be easy. We'll go over here. No problem. These guys, how do we do actually against the barbarians? There we are. So there are 54 barbarians. We lost 1 chariot and 4 elite warriors. That's fantastic. We did great. For fighting barbarians, that's no big deal at all, really. So these guys, Bone Tribe, don't fuck with Bone Tribe. They go berserk. You could probably still take them out with chariots, because chariots are just super good versus those kind of guys, but still don't like berserk units. They have a good chance of not routing and then getting a lot of extra kills on your units, right? So there we go, more chariots, and now, actually, did I wait too long? Nope, next turn this guy will be able to lead out another army, and we'll take these barbarians out. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of the year. I think we're making good progress. I got the hang of this a little bit better. I made some mistakes attacking units I shouldn't have attacked because they were the wrong size for chariots to crush them, i.e., like there's a couple things you can get, like giants and like what's that nation? Agarthan units, I think. There's some Agarthan units that can be size 4 in indie provinces. Oh, Cloud Mage. See, this is one of the things that would normally be really nasty, but with cavalry attacking rear, you just kill the Cloud Mage instead of fighting through all his bullshit, and then it's not a problem. You win. Okay. Whew. Oh, crap. This is going great. This is going great. Oh, we can't expand that way, can we? There we go. Okay, and we're going to go over here. We'll take out the Wolf Tribe. Wolf Tribe's more dangerous than Deer Tribe, so it's not really just going to be a breeze, but should still be pretty easy. And actually, I wonder how far we can get with these units. They should be... Oh, I guess our lizards are pretty slow in map move speed. Yeah, they're pretty slow in map move terms. They can't move 2 squares a go per turn. And attack rearmost. You know, attack closest probably would work pretty well on these guys too, but I'm gonna keep setting it to attack rear because there are those cases where you're going to I want to take this throne province maybe a little later with a slightly larger army. There are those cases where you want to kill the commander, so attack rear is pretty much going to be better. Even if you can just stomp through their army and kill them all, right? You still would prefer to snipe out their leader. If you're wondering, also, I didn't really mention it, but the reason why I should have recruited a mage when I recruited one of these guys is always recruit mages first, because then they'll be alive longer, which means they'll be generating research for you longer. Let's see how that's going. We're already at enchantment 2. We're moving on to 360 RP per month. That's pretty good. We should look about now is a good time to also start building forts. So we're gonna look at where we want to place our forts. These are good locations here and here. This is kind of a crappy location, but it's good enough, and we can recruit mages on it. So we'll do there. 3 forts. We've got a pretty solid income, so we're going to be able to build forts real fast. Let's see. And end turn. Okay, Star Peaks. Oof, we got very few units left, but they did very well versus the Wolf Tribe and Asmar. 32. Let's watch one more of these battles where we have chariots going up against like barbarian type dudes, and just check this out, right? So, I mean, these are not as good as actual barbarians, but they bumped into some units and just cut straight through them. I have these set to attack closest. Oh, well, trample is pretty good, actually. Especially, it's pretty good versus units where, like, they have about 10 hit points, and maybe, or units where their primary way of defending themselves is, whatchamacallit, like, protection, or, I believe it cuts through both protection and, defense, actually. Trample damage is kind of bullshit in that way. So let's take a look at this again. inspect this. So trampled, right? It just tramples people. Just there's no rolling or anything. It's just there's a check, right? And it's based on like your relative size and I think it's like depending on your combat speed, you can like trample more units per turn or something. I forget exactly how it works. I should probably brush up on it in the manual sometime soon. But the main thing is that this is a way to kill. I showed this off in one of my archery videos. Like if you have these like high protection units that you can't hurt. Well, if you happen to have elephants, which a few nations get access to, that might have this kind of problem, you can just trample all over them. And you get these chariots, and you get access to nature magic. So there is a nature spell called Enlarge. So if you are having trouble with like size 3 or 4 units even, you can enlarge these chariots from size 4 to size 5 and trample over those units. And that's one way to make quick work of them. It can be particularly good if you combine a couple different buffs, like you have access to some water magic. You might have a hard time getting to water too, but if you empower and then you could cast quickness, right, to get an extra edge, right? Because quickness is going to give those guys more movement speed, right? So they can sprint up to the enemy faster to start trampling them. It's going to give them more what's the word I'm looking for here? It's going to give them more defense, right? More movement, speed, and defense. Those are really the big things that you're going to benefit from in that. Let's see. The other places haven't been recruited yet, and we are working on more troops. Do we have another army yet? Nope. But next turn, we will. At this point, do I even want more expansion armies? We're in early winter. How many provinces have we taken? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We've got our cap for 12, and we're going to take 13, 14, 15 probably this turn. That's pretty good. What I would probably do is, in a multiplayer game, is like secure like this little line right here and like try and like seize that, and then try and seize this throne and build a fort on this throne and a fort on that throne, right? Because thrones are very important strategic locations. And then I'm also building like 3 forts in here and start recruiting mages and ramp up research. And once you're going to recruit Reborn, because once you hit Enchantment 5, you're going to take a bunch of your Reborn out, and you're going to put them with an army, like 10 of them, and you're going to maybe make 2 armies with 10 Reborn each, right? And that's a good reminder. We should probably switch to actually recruiting Sorrowmancers to get cross-path benefits that we want. We're going to take like 10 Reborn, 2 armies or so, and you're just going to march them out, and you're going to have your Reborn all cast Horde of Skeletons, and that's going to add like, God, I don't know. Let's take a look at Horde of Skeletons stat page. So this has 6 effects per cast, right? You're probably going to cast it like 3 times. You're only a Death 2 mage, but so you only get 6 effects. So 3 times, that's going to be, 12, 18 undead, right? And if it's a long battle, you might get more than 3 casts. But let's say we can be really reliably say you'll get 3 casts for 18 undead, right? So that's 18 undead times 10. That's 180 undead, right? That really magnifies the size of your army. And now those go away after every battle, but of course they respawn every battle too, as long as your mages don't get killed. So that's like a really good stream of troops. And if the battle lasts long enough, your mages are going to wake up from their fatigued nap, and they're going to cast Horde of Skeletons some more. And that's super, super good. And then later on, you'll start doing shenanigans with these guys, but that's pretty much going to be your bread and butter for the first fight you get in. And versus a lot of nations, that's going to be a very good strategy. Just surround them with undead and swarm them over. And you use these guys as needed, right? Like, you're probably going to use a ton of elite warriors, but, if it's other humans, like, there are a lot of strategies. If you're worried about their mages, I might use like light infantry, right? Because these guys throw javelins before going into combat, and they have a shield, so they can just eat a couple attacks, right? They can eat probably enough more attacks than militia to make it worth paying the 3 extra gold to get them and paying the extra resources to get them. But you can get like 100 of these guys pretty easily, right? 100 of these guys is 1,000 gold. It's not too big of a deal. It's only 5 resources per dude. They have a low recruitment point cost as well. You can get a ton of them. And you're just going to go in with those guys in the front line, and they're going to last long enough that your mages will cast Horde of Skeletons a ton of times, and they will go in there, and the skeletons will win you the fight, right? The overwhelming weight of numbers will win you the fight. Now, if you have some concerns, like you need to kill some elite units, you have a couple choices, which are your Falchineers, your Elite Warriors, and your Lizard Chariots. Falchineers are actually pretty good value because they're only 13 gold, versus Elite Warriors, which are 15, right? So that's something to keep in mind. The Elite Warriors are quite good, though, with their 2 attacks and all that, and, yeah, I might use Falchineers later on. The Heavy infantry are also pretty good if you expect them to actually be able to survive attacks. Now, what I mean by that is if you're fighting Jotun or Niflheim in this age, they're going to one-shot your heavy infantry, right? They're going to do like 30 to 40 damage per hit when they actually hit you. And so you should pick your Falconeers because when they get hit, they'll get one shot. But when they hit the Jotun giants, they're going to hit them twice for 18 slashing damage. That's pretty good. Or you could even pick your militia, right, on the other spectrum, and they're not going to do any damage at all to the giants, but you'll hopefully fatigue them out, and you'll cast Horde of Skeletons a lot, and those will kill the giants maybe with lucky crits eventually, or you'll have to kill them in another way, like maybe casting Mind Burn with shamans in communions or something. But probably Falconeers are a good way to go about it. Elite warriors aren't terrible either because they have these 20 damage piercing spears, right? So these are going to get through their armor. They're going to deal solid damage. They're just it's going to suck because they're going to get one shot still, and they're going to cost you 15 gold each time they get one shot, right? Now, lizard chariots, unfortunately, probably not good versus giants because the giants will kill you. Well, you have good defense skill. They might be surprisingly okay versus giants, but I still don't like it. You could flank them, though, because giants will have a hard time covering the battlefield and their troops, so you could try and send, like, 10 lizard chariots to attack the giant backline, right? And if you kill their commanders, which you'll have a tough time doing, but if you outnumber them 2 to 1, you can probably do it, and that would be very good for you, and their army will retreat, and you can butcher them, and if you butcher them on the retreat, which you'll be able to do if you have chariots, because you'll move faster than them, well, they're going to be very sad because their troops cost a lot of gold, right? So giants, those type of people are going to be your big problem. Who is it? Abyssia will also be a bit of an issue for you. But at least you both like heat scales. So you're not going to have to be fighting in cold scales where you're cold-blooded penalty. This gives you 8. I think it gives you a huge amount of encumbrance when fighting in cold provinces. It's really bad. Okay, so I should probably finish this up. Let's finish the turn. I don't think I had anything else really to do that turn. Was gonna talk about what you're gonna do going into the mid game. So, whoa, independence. These guys actually won. You kidding me? This one, really? I didn't realize that this group of our troops was there's so few of them left, and it's really incredible that they actually won this fight. But I guess militia really are that crappy versus your lovely 5 basic protection. Really, okay, that was a bit of a stroke of luck, honestly, that our troops didn't rout. All right, well that's cool. So we won that. Let's see, this was much more expected victory. This also. We did win, yeah, but it was pretty rough. Barbarians are always rough. No matter what, barbarians are always tough to fight. So we actually are not getting our dominions spread very well over our territory because we've been capturing it so quickly. At least we don't have any enemy dominion over here. We're just going to need to move out and actually preach a little bit, right? So we're just going to head over here. We're going to start building another palisades. And this guy's going to start building a palisades, and something to keep in mind that I often forget is this is about the point in the game where you need to start site searching. So we're working on our first Sauromancer. Once we get our first water Sauromancer, they need to go out and site search, and then you're going to site search with your with one shaman as well, and maybe like an extra reborn to cover more ground, but mostly you need like a water Sauromancer and a shaman, and that'll cover all your bases because you'll get water 1, astral 1, nature 1, and death 3, right? There's a whole, I should probably make a whole video on site searching because there's a little bit of science that goes into it. You potentially do want to search with a nature 2 mage as well if you want nature gems badly, which you probably do because nature gems are really good. Incidentally, I'm making this 15 because it's on my border and because it has 69 on rest. I don't want to lose the province. Yeah, so we're building palisades there. Who am I forgetting? So these guys they can probably still beat these dudes. And this guy can't do shit, so he's going to patrol. And that's it for those guys. I actually probably want to shoot. Are these like the actual indie shamans, or are they our shamans? I don't know. I don't know if there are. Oh, it says they'll be called Lizard Tribe, right? If they're. Anyway. How's our research coming? We're almost at 3. We're at the winter in year 0. Let's take another turn. We won that battle. Excellent. Lost almost nothing. Stronger force from... Beaten by a stronger force of independence. Was this... Shit. Hysteria. Oh, that's obnoxious. I must have lost a battle I didn't notice or something here. Because why are there all these troops laying around? Just laying around, the dirty layabouts. Okay, well, why don't we take our prophet lizard dude who can only lead... I can lead 40 troops, why not? That's pretty fine. We'll take him out and we'll just conquer that shit back, and he can be our site searching. I mean, there's there are priest provinces, right, that you can site search with holy. They're very rare, but... they do exist, so that's something to keep in mind. So it's not totally a terrible idea to site search with the Prophet Mage, actually. So we'll do that, and we probably want to increase a lot of these provinces up to 10 PD. Not all of them, but some of them. Well, maybe not. We actually have order scales. We don't need to increase them up to 10, but we will. Anywhere where I'm building a fort, I like to increase to at least 5, so someone can't do like an easy, cheesy raiding strat, like attack with a Jotun scout in the early game, because those guys can pretty easily take out one province defense from many nations. So it's something to keep in mind. You don't want to just lose your province in a really dumb way. Got those guys. Bakemono show, that's probably going to be easy to take. Why don't we take that province? And then this is going to be the end of our expansion phase, right about now. Alright, so we won that fight, no big surprise there. Won that fight, no big surprise there. And we now have spring in year 2. So this is when most people would say the expansion phase ends. This is going to be a little bit inconsistent. And this guy needs to go down here and start taking all these provinces. This is going to be a little inconsistent because it depends on like the settings of the game you're in. Games with fewer provinces per player your expansion will end sooner. Games with more provinces per player, you're going to expand for a longer period of time. But this is about the time where you want to consolidate and watch out for people trying to fight you, and watch out for people you might want to fight, and that sort of thing, right? So this is pretty much it. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 provinces, including our capital. Now, this is pretty good. I don't know if you really even want to have an Awake Expander on this nation, now that I'm thinking about it more, because you don't want to get too greedy, right? Expanding more is mostly just a good thing. However, if you expand too far, then other people can want to gang up on you and kill you. And so you don't want to attract enough attention by your expansion to be the target that everyone jumps on. It's going to depend a little bit on the type of people you play with and where you're playing your games, but you know, that is a thing that can happen, and so watch out for that, and make sure that if you are succeeding well in expansion, you get ahead of yourself on diplomacy in multiplayer games, and make sure that you're not going to get jumped on by too many of your neighbors early on. That's another reason why I forgot to do it in this game for good practice, but when you're playing multiplayer games, especially played by email games, when you have time to think about it, there's no excuse to not have recruited some scouts along the way. Indie scouts like the one I can get, this guy who's building palisades. Once I took this province, I probably should just put those guys on repeat, right? Especially with this good scales where you have plenty of gold. And you send these guys out and just send them out in every direction and get a good idea of who your neighbors are and who's doing well and who's fighting who and all that stuff. It's very important for your odds of winning the game to do that. And I think we've covered pretty much everything. Let me talk a little bit more about magic as the game goes on before I sign off. And that's you're still heading for Horde of Skeletons up here. You've got Foul Vapors. Now this is hard for you to cast, but you'd still really like to cast it, so you're going to want to work on getting a Nature Mage boosted to Nature 3, maybe by empowering, maybe by just using... Actually, you don't need to, do you? Casting time 200%, fatigue cost only 100. Okay, so you only need a Nature 2 Mage to cast it. Nature 2 Water 1. So what you'll do is you get a Nature 2 Mage and you'll craft a Thistle Mace, and that boosts your Nature by 1, and then you'll put it on your Nature 1 Water 1 Mage, and he'll have Nature 2 Water 1, and he'll be able to cast Foul Vapors. So what you do is once you get a Horde of Skeletons, you run around and you have your one Sorrowmancer who can cast Foul Vapors, and he casts Foul Vapors every battle, and none of your troops care, and you fight people who don't have poison resistance, and they're really sad about this, and they die, and you're going to cast Horde of Skeletons to make sure that the battle drags on for so long that you can actually kill people with Foul Vapors. And with your 3 magic scales, right, you're going to ensure that you get to this point really quickly. And with all these palisades you're building, you're going to send out like maybe 2 of these mages and put them on these other places and build temples and labs. And you're going to start recruiting like a ton of these shamans. And actually, I might even recruit more more Reborn early on. The Shamans are better for research, but you want a mix of them in Reborn, like I mentioned earlier, because you want to cast Horde of Skeletons a lot, and you need a pretty good mage army going into the mid game so you can win fights, right? Okay, so I think I covered pretty much everything I want to cover with this nation. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, let me know if you have any criticism or questions or whatnot in the comments down below. And keep in mind, of course, this is just one way you can play the nation. I think it's probably how I would play them, but there's definitely room to experiment with awake expanders and potentially with blesses, although I think that's probably not a very viable route. All right, thank you all for watching.